Welcome to Future Talk. On today's program, we're going to examine how technological innovation happens, what kind of conditions are necessary to keep it going, and whether innovation can sometimes be too rapid, creating unintended dangers. My guest is Curt Carlson, internationally recognized leader in the field of innovation. He served 16 years as president and CEO of SRI International, one of the world's top scientific research labs. Under his leadership, SRI became renowned not only for creating great technology, but also for bringing it to the commercial marketplace. He's helped start over 25 new companies, including Siri, the maker of the interactive speech program that was acquired by Apple, and Intuitive Surgical, the maker of robotic surgery equipment. His methods of creating value have been applied to leading corporations worldwide. He served on President Obama's National Advisory Council on Innovation and Entrepreneurship. He's a fellow of the National Academy of Inventors and has received numerous awards and honors. Curt, great to have you on the program today.
Great to be back with you.
Curt, what are some of the conditions that are necessary in order for innovation to take place?
I start off always thinking about what is innovation. Innovation is where you create and deliver new value to society, and hopefully it has a sustainable element to it, a business model or something like Wikipedia that makes it continue going forward. And innovation is about learning. You know, one of the things that people say that I think is really inappropriate is fail fast to succeed early. Do you want to fail fast to succeed early? I don't think so. I don't know very many people who want to fail fast.
So the idea is to get your failures out of the way quickly?
Well, we all understand what it means, but it's still misleading. It doesn't tell you what to do. The real objective is you want to learn fast. Innovation is about learning, creating, discovering fast. It's not about failing fast.
Now, is there a difference between learning and creating? You could be very learned. That doesn't mean you can create anything.
That's true. It's different, but you still, as you're going about creating, because innovation is about delivering value to society, you gotta learn about the ecosystem. You gotta learn about customers' needs. There's an enormous amount of learning that has to take place. But you asked me, what are the conditions? So if you think about learning, anything that makes it easy to learn is a good thing. Anything that gets in the way is a bad thing. So, for example, in companies, there are often stovepipes or barriers between people, so they can't talk to the best people. Or from the government side, if the government has too much uncertainty or puts up too many roadblocks or regulations that are not appropriate, that slows it down. Anything that slows it down basically is bad. Here in Silicon Valley, one of the reasons why Silicon Valley is so special is we have people like you running shows like this all the time. We're constantly talking to each other. We're constantly learning from each other. And it's more intense that way here than any place, certainly, that I've been in the world.
So does it have something to do with human relationships? Instead of people seeing each other as competitors, I don't want that person to learn too much because they'll get ahead of me. People are collaborating and leveraging their own knowledge.
Well, here in Silicon Valley, we collaborate and we compete. But certainly in terms of the amount of information you can learn here, just kind of hanging around is incredible compared to any place else in the world.
Now, where do ideas come from? Like, most innovation comes from ideas, and a person might say, this idea just popped into my head. Is there anything you can do to make yourself more receptive to new ideas popping into your head, or do you just have to be born with that ability?
No, I actually think you can I think an enormous number of people can be value creators. That's different than being an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is a set of personal characteristics, willing to put money on the line and take those kinds of risks. But almost everybody that we hang around with can learn how to create value for their customers. That's a set of skills and attitudes that you can develop in people.
Now, when you were head of SRI, you were largely credited with turning it around, making it a world leader in innovation.
Yes.
What sort of things did you do to change the culture at SRI to make it more successful?
Well, it's true. When I came for almost 20 years, it had been in slow decline, and it was close to going bankrupt. And so we did have to turn it around, or else it would be gone now. And the way we did that was not by firing lots of people. The people were actually great. The people wanted to do wonderful work. It was the way they were working. It was the process of innovation they were using. So what we put in place was a family of ideas, work on big important problems. We have a playbook for innovation that we taught everybody. And we had a way to, it's kind of an incubation process where people would get together every 2, 3, 4 weeks. You'd stand up, present your ideas, collect the ideas from your colleagues, and just, it never stopped. This constant interaction with colleagues and both inside and outside of SRI to get the answers we need to solve big important problems.
Did you find that most people were capable of performing well as long as you assumed that they would and you trusted them and you let them know that you expected a lot of them?
Almost everybody wanted to work this way. The kind of people we hang around with want to make a positive contribution. They want to make a difference in the world. They're inherently curious, and they have the right, obviously, in a place like SRI, it's not a question of IQ and skills. They're incredibly capable people. But you have to give people a roadmap to follow if they're going to answer these big, hard problems, the kind of things that we went after.
Can a culture of innovation be applied anywhere? There are many countries that have tried to create their own Silicon Valleys. Most have been unsuccessful.
Yes.
Do we understand all the ingredients so we could reproduce it, or are there still some secret thing in there that we don't quite understand, but it works for us?
Well, it is hard to reproduce Silicon Valley, and I don't think you can reproduce Silicon Valley. You have to be something else. But obviously, there are other places in the world that are pretty good. London's pretty good. Obviously, Boston's great. Austin. Sweden, Stockholm, recently has been very successful in certain IT activities like banking and gaming. They have a cadre of people who've developed the right attitudes and characteristics and skills, and they're able to create big companies.
I know that a lot of people are consciously working on expanding the culture of innovation and entrepreneurship. In fact, you just came back from the Drucker Global Forum in Vienna, which
Yes.
dealt very much with innovation. What was that all about? What happened there?
Well, it's one of the most important conferences every year in innovation. Peter Drucker was probably the most famous management writer ever. And he was born in Austria. And so every year they have a forum devoted to him, and they collect leaders from around the world who are studying the process of innovation and helping put it in place in companies and universities and governments. So if you're in the field, it really is the place to be during the week.
Now, once you have a culture of innovation, can you be sure that it will always be sustained, or could various things kill that culture?
No, it's actually pretty easy. It's pretty delicate flower, so it's pretty easy to kill. It's hard to put in place because it takes a while for people to understand what to do. But certainly, CEOs like myself, we're usually the problem. We're usually the ones who get it wrong. I've almost never been in a company where I thought the failure of the company was due to the staff. It's almost always senior management that doesn't get it, that doesn't understand the process of innovation, that doesn't put it in place. In fact, there's a quote that I like. It's every CEO will at least say the world is moving faster and we need to do a better job in innovation. But if you go into that organization and you ask the employees to describe their innovation system, they give you a blank look. They have none. They have none. And that is the key to understand whether, in fact, that company has an innovation process. Because if a middle manager can't describe it, there is none. And I would tell you, I've been in dozens and dozens and dozens of companies. The number of companies that have a thoughtful innovation process, you can count on one hand.
Well, most companies manufacture specific products. So let's say you have a company, and this is the product. It might have great management,
Yes.
but maybe there's just no demand for this product.
Well, more typically, you find companies that have a product that they've been developing over many years, and they're incrementally improving it. They can do that. They're good at that. What they usually don't have is a process to create major innovations. Now, the problem with that is that we're in the global innovation economy, and it goes fast. It's exponentially fast, and the global competition is intense and increasing incredibly rapidly. In China, for example, every week 1 million people go from the countryside into the cities. So every year there are several cities being formed in China the size of New York City that weren't competing with us and will compete with us in the future. So in a world like this, the lifetime of big companies has declined from what used to be, 150 years ago, companies would last for 100 years before they went away. Now it's down to less than 15 years. Imagine, you get to be one of the top 500 companies in the world, and just at that moment, you've got 15 years left. Why? You can't innovate fast enough to keep up with the marketplace.
Now, do you think the goal should be to innovate as rapidly as possible? Like, we should all be trying to push technology as rapidly as possible because that's what's going to maybe save the human race from something?
Well, first off, if you're in a company, you want to innovate as fast as you can, or else you're going to be out of business. But that was certainly our goal at SRI. We wanted to be efficient and effective. We wanted to tackle big, important problems that people cared about. We wanted to assemble the best teams. We were really devoted to doing the things that matter, that allow you to innovate fast, efficiently, and solve big, important problems. In terms of society, as you know, it's a big issue today. Just take the case of autonomous vehicles, cars and trucks. That may eliminate as many as 15 million jobs in America. So the faster we achieve that, the more we threaten those jobs. And the issue we're all discussing is, well, will we be able to make up new jobs for those people? And if we don't, what do we do?
So it's kind of a question of the human cost. You can save money by replacing workers with machines, but there are human costs as well.
That's always been true with innovation. When we automated farming, that was true. When we automated factories, that was true. When we were automating service jobs and manufacturing jobs, that was true. If it happens at a slow enough pace so that society can absorb it basically over the lifetime of a human being, that's one thing. The disruption is still significant, but it's tolerable. But what do you do when disruption is happening at a rate of, say, 15 years or so?
It's exponential.
It's well within the working lifetime of people, so that they have to basically make the shift several times over the course of their lifetime, and that's hard.
Now, if people are being displaced from their jobs, like people who drive trucks for a living,
Yeah.
whose responsibility is that the computer engineer's job to be concerned about that? Is it the government's job to be concerned about the well-being of people who can't find any work because they can't do anything that a machine can't do better? Or is the individual just out of luck?
I think it's all parts of society has a responsibility here. I would be pessimistic except for one reason. I have never seen more big opportunities for innovation in my life. Every field, you name it, whether it's energy, the next generation internet, personalized health, just across the board, every area is open to huge transformative innovations that potentially create, if not as many jobs as we need, at least economic prosperity for the population.
What do you think are some of the most important areas that are on the verge of exploding right now?
They all are. It's amazing. The internet still isn't fast enough. It's not secure. Cybersecurity doesn't exist as we know it today. We still don't have the green technologies we need at the cost we need to be able to really replace the fossil fuels we're using. Personalized medicine still isn't here. We haven't converted medicine yet into an information technology. That's going to take a while, but we're about to do that. It just, you go across the board. robotics in terms of we're spinning out companies to augment people who have disability. We're starting to do that, and we're going to do that. But basically, every area I think is exciting. But I want to go back to this. Who's responsible for this? So I think there are lots of opportunities that we can do, which makes me reasonably optimistic about at least the next 20 or 30 years. But people need to step up and get the skills. That's their personal responsibility. Companies need to be more effective at developing those innovations. Universities have to train people to give them the innovative skills they need. And government ultimately has the huge responsibility of setting the stage for making it easy to develop those innovations, number one. And for those people who can't make it, provide some kind of a safety net for them so that they're not left out going forward.
Well, I think the idea is that we want to create jobs that cannot be done by machines. But the question is, what kind of jobs would that be? Machines are not only replacing white-collar workers, they're now also, not only replacing blue-collar workers, they're also replacing white-collar workers. So what jobs are left that a machine can't do?
Well, that's a big debate, right? Obviously, the human touch jobs are the ones that are going to be the last to go. So certainly you can look at education and healthcare and all those areas that you can feel pretty secure. Entertainment, there's opportunities there. But in terms of the kind of core manufacturing skills, those sorts of things, a lot of those jobs are going to go away for sure.
Now, if you say that people can't get jobs, there's an idea being bandied about called universal basic income,
Yeah.
which means the government just gives money to people so they can survive, and no work is required of them. And on the face of it, it sounds like a little bit ludicrous, but every time you hear about it, it's gained a little more traction and a few more adherents. And that's the way social movements get going. At first, they're universally dismissed as absurd, and then gradually, unless they're totally debunked. So do you think that's an idea that really can gain traction?
I wouldn't be surprised if we ended up doing more of that. I mean, in a way we do that today, right? But I would hope that built into that would still be the incentives to get people to work. Work is very important in terms of one's mental well-being and purpose in life. And if you take that away completely, I think that's not a good thing. So I would hope we can still build in incentives to encourage people to do what they can do.
Do you think there might be a response to the problem such as, well, making it illegal for machines to operate motor vehicles so you can't fire all the truck drivers?
Well, there will always be Luddites, for sure, who want to slow everything down. I mean, we see this today. Some of it's reasonable, some of it's not. We see this with green genetically modified agriculture and things like that.
Or genetically modified human beings.
Well, that's probably going to happen too.
That's
right?
getting close?
Well, it's more than close. So yeah, we're going to have to confront all those issues. It's the thing about innovation is on one side it's why we're here and we're prosperous and why we're getting close to being able to feed everybody on the planet. That's one side of it. The other side of it is it's causing these disruptions. It's not, humans basically have to mediate how this plays out. It's not, the machines aren't going to mediate what we should do. We have to mediate that.
Is there a risk that the government, in trying to control the problems generated by too much technology, will kill the incentive for innovation and put an end to the whole innovation culture?
Well, it goes back to your question of what kind of environment do you need to foster innovation. Innovators are always looking for those small signals in a sea of noise to figure out what to do. And it's a little bit like someone's, with a little AM radio on top of a mountain trying to pick out a station, right? It's, you're tweaking the dial all the time, and you have to constantly adjust it, and the noise is going up and down. Well, that's what society is like. And when the government, through inappropriate regulations or political uncertainty or having a money supply like we have today, which is pretty bizarre with almost zero interest rates. All those things create noise, which make it harder to find those signals. Same thing in companies, too much disruption, too much confusion, too many barriers. All those things make it harder. So we have as a society need to be able to control that.
Well, what's the ultimate goal of innovation? Is it to make life as easy and as effortless as possible? Is it to give us control over nature so we can enjoy the highest possible standard of living? Is it to create purpose and meaning? Does a person living in a high-tech world have a more meaningful or purposeful life than a person living in a low-tech world?
I think it depends on who you are, but I do think that if you're in the middle of India someplace and you're living in basically, what we'd consider to be a slum with no sanitation, no fresh water, inadequate food, your children dying of malaria and other diseases, I think most people would say innovation's a gift. And certainly a lot of what we've done is remove those kinds of threats from humanity. Once you get to be as prosperous as we are, then there are all kinds of other issues that are personal issues that determine whether it's a plus or a minus.
Now, innovation can also be used to create weapons. Even things that have benign uses, such as drones, can also be weapons. Anyone can go to a hobby store and buy a very inexpensive drone and turn it into a deadly weapon.
Well, again, that's the kind of balance that only society and our political systems can decide how to modulate that. You're absolutely right. That's the flip side of innovation. The drones will be used to deliver groceries and packages very efficiently. They allow us to look at farm fields and do surveillance on them to optimize the growth of crops, to minimize the use of pesticides and water. I mean, there's both sides of it. On one side, it's a revolution in terms of the way we're going to be able to do things, and on the other side, yeah, people can misuse drones.
Is it possible that we can become too dependent on technology? So we're very dependent on the electrical grid, for example, and the internet. It's not inconceivable that these could be brought down and rendered inoperable by intent of somebody?
Well, of course. We see the cyber attacks all the time, so we know we're vulnerable to that. And the more we depend on information technology, the more vulnerable we become to certain kinds of things. Back in medieval time, when the Black Death came through Europe, they had a different kind of threat that wiped out half the population of much of Europe. We've controlled that, but yeah, there are always threats in society.
So is innovation seen as the answer to everything? There's no problem that can't be solved through greater technology.
Well, I don't share that view. I think again, there's a balance here, like everything else, and society and government has a big role in deciding what we do. But I still, when you think of all the things that we can't do that we want to do, just in health and education. Let's take education. Right now in America, if you're in Detroit or Cleveland or LA, there are regions where less than 50% of children graduate. They're being left out of today's society. To me, that's criminal. In some places, particularly with black boys, it can be down as low as 30 or even 25% in selected schools. That is just, to me, completely wrong and unacceptable. I often say that if an enemy did that to us, we'd go to war with them. And we and others have been working on new ways to teach so that these children can have a chance to participate, because they can't if they don't get educated.
Now, do they need something at home, too? Because even if you have very good schools, if a child is not in a home which prepares his mind to learn, he's still going to have a hard time, isn't he?
Well, it's true. Your local environment, your family environment, the community you're in, all have a huge impact. And we need to attack those problems more thoughtfully than we have. But I was going to focus on the fact that we're developing educational approaches with technology that I think can have a really big impact. We have a program to teach algebra that's now in a trial in Florida where we're getting close to 100% improvement in educational outcomes. It's still a prototype. It's a very large, tens of thousands of children. It's one of the largest trials ever in the history of the United States. And even though it's just a prototype, it's already been accepted as part of the curriculum in Broward County, the 6th largest district in the United States. And we've never seen those kinds of results before. And it's because we're finally beginning to figure out what are the things you have to do to learn effectively. And how do you put it into a platform where kids can use it effectively that's not complicated and doesn't cost a lot and those kinds of things. So, you know, there are things like that that I think are just tremendously positive and hopeful for the future.
Because schools don't change very rapidly. It's pretty stodgy trying to change educational norms, but I think we're at the point that we have to change them because it's necessary. That for the amount of money we're spending on education, we've got to make sure that people get something out of it.
Well, we do, and changing the institution itself is a very hard, slow process. So our approach was basically to accept what we have and how do we augment it? How do we amplify the effectiveness of the system we have? And that's what we've proven we can do. We can make a really big difference with that without having to go in and change the structure or accepting all the union contractual agreements that are there. That's a given from our point of view. How do we take that and then make that system effective? And we're beginning to understand how to do that.
Yeah. And it's true that you will meet resistance, so it's not like you can just go ahead with the plan.
Well, I'll tell you that if you're a superintendent in one of these schools and more than 50% of your kids are failing, you don't get much resistance.
I'm going to have to wrap because I just got the signal we're out of time, unfortunately, because we could go on for quite a bit longer. Yeah. I've been speaking with Curt Carlson, former president and CEO of SRI International. Curt, thanks for being here. A pleasure to have you again. Thank you for watching. Visit our website, www.futuretalk.net. For Future Talk, I'm Marty Wasserman. We'll see you next time.